What the heck? All right, all right, all right. This podcast brought to you by Blizzard.
Not
What?
sponsored.
Sorry, guys. I just got by. I was
Blizzard?
hungry. Yeah,
Oh,
and I also hit the
oh.
record button as well. So,
That's in there. Let's go.
all right, here we go. Another episode of Panther Airsoft Folding Table Talk, guys. Episode 39.
39.
Dude, we're almost at that middle age crisis there.
We're gonna have to.
Whoa,
We're gonna have to
whoa.
reevaluate.
Let's
next week.
not bring that up, boy. Come on.
All right.
Little harsh there.
And yeah, we got Dave here, but we'll introduce him shortly here. But let's get right on into our typical podcast stuff. What do we have here? What do we have on the last podcast here? Tech, what do we have? We have any comments? Anything? What were we talking about from the last podcast?
Okay, so from updates from our last podcast, we were just talking about, memories and sort of like doing a little brief team interview with
Trainwreck. Yes, I remember now.
Trainwreck Toast there. So we were just sharing it, like I was saying earlier, just some stories and memories and whatnot. And just looking at the comments from our last episode, we have a comment from Director Armistead here saying, "Good episode. Really nice to hear these stories and memories about this team and any local team for that matter. Trainwreck was one of the first teams or groups I took notice of when we began to visit Panther. Looking forward to the future segments. Good work, fellas." Well, thank you, Director Armistead.
There you go, and that's what we want from, especially with the C21 stuff. That's what we want. It's just the stories pouring out from the community and what it means to you for airsoft, because it's really like it's not all about guns. We've been mentioning this all the time. It's not all about guns. It's the people that you sort of play with, the community that you not so for some people you grew up with, and at this point, like you trust them more than some friends outside. And then you've met them. You met friends that are normally not in your circle, right? So there you go. Like, let's keep at it, guys. Just keep telling those stories, and we'd love to tell your stories. And if you have a team that wants to get interviewed, come forward to us or come talk to Mac Attack at the store or myself, and we'll see if we could sweep you in here. And what's next here? We got Airsoft, not news. Oh no, not yet. We got field news.
Whoa. Getting ahead there, boy.
Whoa.
Trying to get to your favorite part here.
I'm too quiet.
All right,
guys. Super simple, guys. Real easy. If you've been to the field recently, please keep up with our current COVID guidelines and everything like that, guys. I know a lot of people are getting all angsty about like all the vaccine news and some of the numbers and everything like that. But guys, if we keep following our rules, we're allowed to stay open. We're allowed to stay operational. That's the main thing. We want to make sure everyone's able to have a good time and stay safe at the same time. So, guys, remember, anytime you're outside of your vehicles, guys, I'd like you guys to have a mask on, okay? And try and maintain that 10-foot social distancing from anyone who's outside of your household. So again, we're not going to get mad if you guys are standing right next to your brother or sister or your mother or your father, or apparently some people's best friends live with them more than they see their parents. So again, I'm not going to fight people on this, but we are advising this, guys. So yeah, 10-foot social distancing. Other than that, please wear your mask at all times, other than when you're in your vehicles or when you guys are eating or drinking. Other than that, yeah, have fun, dress for the weather. It's getting really nice out there. We've had some pretty good weekends. We also had some ugly weekends. So guys, also be mindful again of having changes of clothes, proper footwear, stuff like that. The guns, make sure you guys are taking care of your guns before you show up, and you don't show up with a broken gun and then expect us to somehow miraculously fix it. But it happens sometimes. Thank you, Tack. All right. Other than that, on the field, guys, we are still open 100% right now. We are in between the filming schedules and stuff, so a majority, 100 is the wrong way to put it. I will say 98.5. Okay, there are still some limited field restrictions and such, but other than that, guys, you can play throughout the vast majority of the field. We're going to be able to do a lot more bigger games and everything like that, numbers dependent. And then that's also doubling back to the smaller games and stuff too. So unfortunately, right now, just because of the large turnouts that we have for drop-in games and everything, Saturday, Sunday, usually we can't get city games done until we have a small enough group that we can make sure everyone's able to kind of stay apart from each other. But yeah, so that's what's going on at the field, guys. Hope to see you guys out, and then that will roll us right off into Airsoft News.
Airsoft news.
The Airsoft
What's up,
News.
Okay, what's up, guys? So, I actually have some bad airsoft news to start off
Oh
with. I'm gonna
no,
hit you
bad
guys with the
Airsoft
bad
News.
stuff. Okay, so to
Bad
start off
stuff.
with, recently I saw a post about Devil Dog Airsoft located out in Bellwood, Ontario, having to say that they are fortunately having to close permanently. Not just close down for COVID, not just close down, see how things are going. Apparently, just with the current tide of things, they're just permanently closing. And that's really unfortunate to hear. Part of it has to do with Bill C-21, which is really, really unfortunate to see. So, 21. Going from there, next I have actually. So I recently went into Trigger Airsoft and I saw this really cool little adapter that they were selling by Vulcan Airsoft. Poi, if you can throw that up there.
Yep, I got it up here.
So I don't know about you guys, but when I saw this, the first thing that came to my mind was Call of Duty. So for any of you Call of Duty fans out there that really want to like make other people like Poi sort of cry when they see a really nice M4 be treated this way, go and grab that at Trigger Airsoft. And then from there,
Actually, I have one. I know how to use it. I actually had this one. I think 7 years ago. The adapter
Really?
for 9mm. So it was pretty cool to use for a full Stanag converted to like a 9mm straight mag. So it's pretty cool. That was back then when advent of 3D printing wasn't even there yet. The topic we're talking about today, but yeah, no, it was pretty cool to have one. I don't know where it is now, but yeah, it was pretty awesome. I think it's lost somewhere now. But either way, it's nice to have lighter mags, smaller mags. You're not honestly. We're not worrying about 5.56 to 9mm here. We're using 6mm BBs, right? So
it doesn't matter, but it's the look of it, right?
It's nice to see it come back again. I mean, honestly, yeah. All right.
Okay, all right. So there you guys go. And then moving on from here, our last bit of news is again, sorry guys, gonna hit you with some bad news again. It's also related to our main topic at hand here, but it's 3D printing related arrests. Of course, these arrests are revolving around gun charges. Yesterday, guys, yesterday, the Ontario Provincial Police apparently their crime unit was arrested 3 people, and from the looks of it, looks like it was a person plus his family. His family got roped into this because of his stupid decision. So, before you guys do anything, obviously understand what you're trying to do. If you take a look at the just the little description here, it looks like he was very intent on making firearms. So even when you kind of look at it here, obviously he was put in a stock, pistol grip and stuff like that. You can, maybe, do that at home, or people get around with that or whatever it is. His entire intent here looks like it was to just manufacture firearms, unserialized firearms. So it's a big
We'll get
no-no.
back. We'll get back at this when we get into 3D printing a little bit more on the
Yeah.
topic.
Mhm.
But
Okay, so
these are some pretty serious
yeah.
charges, honestly. So
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, guys, ending with that, I'd like to hand back everything.
actually, yeah, you have one
Boy.
more. Actually,
I have one more.
yeah, in
Yeah, you got
regards,
one more.
this one just came up today. Actually, in regards to another one in
Oh,
Ontario, pulling up.
Oh,
no.
wow.
I'm pulling.
I
I'm
was
pulling
really-
up the officer safety of thing here.
I'm trying to
This
find the video link right now. One
An,
second.
an
I saw
M16.
no. So okay, I saw this on Reddit
249.
actually.
Yeah.
This morning, and it was
This is not cool, guys.
This is really
we're
unfortunate.
already in a tight spot right now with C21 and such, and this just adds fuel to the fire for what they're trying to do, is basically get rid of replicas and airsoft
Yeah.
to begin with. So the story is this man right here. I believe he's like 21 or 22 years old if he's born in 1999.
Yeah.
Went to, I think it was a public transport, which is their train.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yeah,
then and then there's
Train.
video on Reddit. It was crazy, and some dude just
Yeah.
carrying an M249 without a bag or anything. And his
Nothing.
was his intent to rob someone, or
I
honestly-
don't.
It's a little bit overkill
really
for that.
No.
Honestly, we don't
actually.
know. We don't
Yeah.
know at this
Well,
point.
whatever he
we'll
was doing,
find
he
out
was
later.
transporting it irresponsibly,
Extremely irresponsible.
That's
very
even worse-
irresponsibly.
even worse
And look
than
at that trigger
even-
discipline too. I mean, I got more
yeah.
things to worry about here, but that's the first thing I seen
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah,
bad.
exactly. The first thing I noticed was you're carrying that thing without a sling, and two, why is your hand
Yeah.
and your finger in
And
the trigger?
I
Yeah,
guess
it's got a carry handle. God.
here's the
Yeah.
deal: is like, if we had Bill 4, it makes it illegal to sort of transport it around like this. I mean, it's obvious, right? It's common
Well,
sense at this
so
point, right?
Isn't
You'd
it, well,
think so.
isn't that exactly actually if you look at 3 paragraphs down in this officer safety report where they talk about this guy actually has gun related charges and that he was able to circumvent those charges by unfortunately it looks like getting an airsoft replica.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
sort of expresses a flaw in the system that needs to be sort of identified.
Yeah,
and
and
kind of,
covered
like,
under law.
Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously, we were talking about that in previous episodes, but I know I've said this before where it's like doesn't give reason to ban anything right there. That just gives reason to show you that there's a obvious loophole that needs to be understood and fixed.
Yeah.
Because
And again,
yeah.
Bill 4 covers that education purposes where you have to conceal these things out of, like, you can't bring it in public, and if you are, make sure that your intent is to bring it to a field or to a store or whatever, and make sure that it's in a bag that is not opaque, right? Or that is opaque, or is it opaque? Sorry, sorry,
Opaque.
that's not
That is
transparent. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
opaque, yeah. So,
Yeah.
obviously, I don't know what's going on in Ontario, but, like, guys, common sense. Let's,
They'd be wild in.
yeah, let's
Hey, you know what? The only props I could give this guy is at least he had his mask on. At least
Yeah.
this guy's not an anti-masker, so maybe there's some hope for this guy yet. Who knows?
I think it's just because it's like mandatory to ride the system.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so and with that, guys, that's the end of Airsoft News.
Airsoft
And
Pat-
Yeah.
And
with
we'll
the,
jump into
update from Bill.
Bill C21 stuff. The current state of Bill C21 is it's still not voted into the SECU. The SECU was still they had to talk about it. I was watching it. They were talking about it for a bit. I believe it was what's his name? Glenn Motz was talking about questioning Bill Blair in regards to C21, and he asked him in regards to Airsoft if there's anything that they would do, and then he responded back with a simple they're combating yada yada yada. So it's the same sort of speech that they've been giving over and over again. So he dodged the question. There wasn't really a direct answer to it, unfortunately. Glenn ran out of time for his question period, and then they continued on with more questioning in regards to other things that is C21. That isn't airsoft related, but more gun related at that point. So they haven't really talked about it too much, unfortunately, but that's the state it is right now. The petition still has a few hours left. By the time this video releases, it is, I don't know, I think it's like 4 hours or 5 hours left when this video releases. So
Okay.
please get anybody to sign that petition at this point. Make sure they know what they're signing. Do not force it upon them to sign it. Make sure you educate them on why it is important to you, and as well as why it is important for you to combat this. Just get them to sign it. Again, what are we? E3201. I'm pulling it up here. We are at drum roll, please. is 36,000. Wow.
Oh,
There's a
damn.
lot of people.
Okay.
That's a lot of people. Yeah.
So,
So there you go.
that-
6:17 EDT, Eastern Daylight Time.
Mhm.
And yeah, we are probably the highest petition right now still. Let me just double check. Yeah, we are at 36,000.
The
That's
highest
not-
active petition.
Yeah, active petition right now. So that's not bad, guys. Great job, by the way, for sharing that. Let's make sure that we get the last push. At least 37, guys. Let's go. There is another petition that is going around as well, and that is E3249. I did mention last time this came out. If you want to sign another petition and you support firearms rights, go and sign 3249. Again, I am not forcing you guys to sign this. I am just informing you that if you want to support the sort of getting rid of C21, there is another petition out there that's 3249, and that is more dedicated to the firearms folks. This is to get rid of C21 at this point, and this is at 14,000, and I'm sure it's gonna sort of go beyond the airsoft one, but we'll see. I mean, it'll be cool because they are more firearms related, and there's more firearms people than airsoft players. So that is that. Next one is ASIC, and in part with the Quebec Federation Airsoft community. They are also doing a survey. Unfortunately, I can't access the survey since I've already done it before, but I will link it to you guys in the description below. It is a survey that is going to try and combat C21 using statistics. Now, it's not collecting any personal info. The only thing it's going to collect is your email. Sort of the same thing as what you had to sign the petition. This one is a survey. Actually, it's more of a census, honestly. It's not a survey. It's an airsoft census. It's going to collect things like how much do you spend in a year, how far do you have to go to a certain game, what events you attend in here locally, what events you attend in the States. It'll ask all that questions so that they would know how much we spend on our hobby, our sport, how much we, if you go out to an event, it's not just the ticket price, it's the gear that you have to buy, equipment, food, right? Hotel, if you have to stay in a hotel, accommodations, right? Gas, even transportation. So you got to account for all of these things because this is basically almost like a tourism revenue. For a lot of these things, that's worth noting. That's worth sending to the government. That's worth telling them, hey, look, we spend this much. If you're gonna kill it, you're gonna kill this entire revenue stream that's coming from just sort of from an entertainment value or purpose. So let's do that census. It is down below. It is going to be the ASIC census is what I'm going to name it. And next one is the last thing that we need to do here is let's write a second round of letters to our MPs. Right now, the language is sort of changing with the MPs where they're forcing us to sort of, what is it? Like they want us to do like green tips or some sort of two-tone or something like that. Let's not push those languages there because honestly, again, I've mentioned this before from previous podcasts, it's not going to work. Let's try and keep it the same as it was before. I mean, give or take, there's a lot of people that don't like regulations, but I would say regulations would work better. Bill 4, BC Bill 4 is probably the best example. So if you can mention that to them as well, that'll be great. But ASIC has released, I'll put a link below as well. ASIC has released a link for you guys to follow. If needed, I'll give it to you guys here. But it is a letter writing campaign. It provides you instructions on what to do and such, and as well as what to write down. There's a lot of information in here. And if you need help writing a letter, I would prefer you guys write a personal letter to your MP because of the fact that they would know that it comes from you, not from an organization, not from someone who says, "Hey, copy and paste this and send it to them." Because what happens is it's just gonna go through their filter and be like, "Oh yeah, there's like 300 people that sent the same letter."
Mhm.
We're not going to read it. It's just spam at that point. So please write to your MP. Let them know what it is, Airsoft means to you, and as well as all the things that ASIC has put down here. You just write it at your own words. That is that. And last update is Bill 4 still at first reading. No updates on there yet. I don't think they had any sessions since then, since they had the readings or no amendments or anything. So we'll get right on to it. All right. That is it for the updates. Thank you. And where was I? Oh, let's get straight on to the topic here. Before we do that, let's introduce Dave. Dave, you're part
Dave.
of Trainwreck, right?
Hello. Yes, I am. I am part of Trainwreck. I'm part of Trainwreck Airsoft.
Ah.
Yeah, you're part of that. Part of that.
I'm part of that.
terrible,
that.
terrible bunch.
The silly nanners.
Yeah.
The
TW.
silly nannies.
So what do you do,
One
Dave?
day. In what terms? For Airsoft, for 3D printing?
Let's go with Airsoft first, and then why 3D printing?
Okay. Airsoft. Well, sport I got into a couple years ago. I think 4 years or so.
Okay.
Played it. It was a lot of fun. When I first came in, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but over time,
Yeah, I
grew and
remember that.
I met this guy. Is that the guy right there? Probably. Anyways, I met Tack and Mac.
That guy
And,
and that guy.
One of these guys, somewhere over there. Anyways, yeah. So I met them and they were like really helpful. They like let us chill with them and they taught me and my dad, especially like a lot of things on like gun safety or working with guns and or airsoft guns replicas. And yeah, it was a load of fun. A problem that I noticed a lot was like when parts broke or I wanted to get parts that were really expensive. I didn't want to say drop all that money because I wasn't really working at the time, or it was too much for some things. I did, however, get a 3D printer for a Christmas, which was probably the best gift that keeps on giving. I'll tell you that, best gift I ever got. And I'm able to make anything under the sun. It would be like parts for an airsoft gun, be just models, stuff that's not even related to airsoft. I can do anything, and that's the cool thing. I can make a new 3D printer if I wanted to, but we'll get.
So you're the not the tech guy, but the 3D. I don't know what to call you, but in the team you have certain specializations or roles. You're the 3D printer guy, basically.
No,
he's
an
3D printer
engineer. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the
yeah,
engineer.
Yeah, I would say engineer guy.
Yeah.
Mechanical engineer-ish.
Well, you
know?
definitely dabble. That's always like
Mhm.
that's. Sorry to interrupt, but that'll definitely be the one thing that I have noticed from you over the 4 years, Dave. From when you first showed up and you started playing with your dad, because I know you already had like real steel experience and stuff too,
Yeah.
because you and your dad's background. So just you guys getting into like the airsoft, and once you understood the airsoft science behind it, you're all like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, right? Because it's like, yeah, it's not a real gun, so it's like, okay, how does this work?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's that simple. Oh, okay, and then from there, it was just like. Yeah, you guys have gone down a whirlwind.
So you came into Airsoft with your dad, or was it dad that introduced you, or was it?
I heard it from YouTube, of course,
Mhm,
YouTube.
mhm.
I watched
Dayton,
like,
I'm
a
guessing?
ton of videos. I was one of House Gamers. Dayton was one of them. And man, I was a real fanboy back then. But anyways, yeah. So like I saw it. I'm like, hey dad, can I? Oh, actually, I played paintball first for somebody's birthday, and I watched a bunch of videos. And then I'm like, hey, can I go out one day? And when I went there, everybody was like really friendly. It was just like, okay. I was wearing like surplus stuff from the surplus store, like $20.
You're prepared already.
I had a G&G Raider, which I'll be getting to a little bit later. I actually still have it here. It is safe. It is actually on safe. Nothing's loaded or battery or anything.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry, man. Don't worry.
So yeah. So I just came with a G&G Raider, and I had a fucking blast. Pardon my French. I had a real time.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Wow.
I had a real good time.
Good. So yeah, you and your dad played, and now you're in here with Trainwreck, and now you're 3D printing stuff for them. All right.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Terrible. Yeah.
That's pretty good for 4 years, though. Honestly, like, you know, you
He's
you got
growing
you
up a
got
lot.
you're in your team. You're in a niche area that no one really dabbles into at this point, which is 3D printing.
Yeah.
I guess this is why we wanted to get into 3D printing, and I'll let Tack take over here to explain what 3D printing is, because
What's
honestly,
good?
I myself do not know a lot about 3D printing. Tech wise, I'll let him take over. I'm just good with dealing with people, but I'll take it on to you, Tack. Go ahead and explain to us
Yeah.
what this world of 3D printing is all about.
Okay, so before I get into that, guys, just a little disclaimer for myself here, just so you know, you guys don't get mad at me for any slip ups that I do. I am a 3D printer enthusiast, so I really, really love 3D printing and everything that it has to bring. I myself don't own a 3D printer. I myself have gone and done designs with 3D printing programs and have had things 3D printed using websites and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I myself have not gone through the headaches that probably happen with 3D printing and owning your own 3D printer. But with that said, that doesn't mean that I don't encourage you guys to get into all of this. So moving on from there, we're going to get into this, which is 3D printing. So 3D printing, what is it, guys? So 3D printing is a process of making a three-dimensional solid object from a digital file, right? So a 3D printed object is achieved using sort of a additive process, right? Which means, I guess, how would you say, like feeding something and sort of like adding it on. So I guess the easiest way is like adding something on layer by layer, or in the sense of like construction and stuff like that, when you use like a concrete pump or something. With that, in an additive process, the easiest way to describe it is a object created by laying down successive layers of material until the object is created. So it's the opposite of the subtractive manufacturing method, which is what most people are familiar with as CNC or milling. So that's like the idea of taking a block and taking material away from it and creating something, right? While with 3D printing, takes it from nothing essentially and into something. From there, 3D printing enables you to produce complex shapes using less material than the traditional manufacturing method. So as I was just saying earlier about cutting away from a block and stuff like that, as you can imagine, there's probably a lot of waste with that. As well, with 3D printing, the most mainstream 3D printing is done usually with a FDM printer, which is a fused deposition modeling printer. So that's what's common with the mainstream community. Stuff that you find on Reddit and stuff like that. Stuff when you look on YouTube and whatnot. When you type in 3D printing, more than likely it's an FDM printer.
What does FDM stand for? Sorry.
Fused deposition modeling.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So essentially,
What are the other models that are available?
so we'll get into that later.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll get into that later. But I just, for the purposes of what most people are basically understanding when they want to get into this, is it's going to be, you're going to get a 3D printer similar to what you might be able to see in Dave's background there, which is just, you know, your little I guess a 3x2 kind of object there that's able to
We'll talk
print
about this
stuff
one
out.
later. This one we'll
Yeah,
talk about later, but this is the one that we're talking about right here, the FDM. It's
yeah,
actually playing something right now.
exactly. So there's actually a whole bunch that you can get into and stuff like that. So with that said, how does it all work? So how does the whole process of 3D printing, right? So it all starts with a 3D model, right, which you can opt to create from the ground up, or you can download it off the web from websites like Thingiverse. Tinkercad also has a library. Dave, there's I think a couple other ones
Yeah,
that you
it's like
mentioned earlier.
Yagi. Yagi's another one, in Cults and a bunch of other things. So like Yagi's actually probably the best one because it takes like a repository of like a whole bunch paid
Mhm.
or non-paid models and stuff like that.
Okay, all right. So, you know, there you guys go. And then from there, there are many different software tools that are available from industrial all the way to open source. So, you know, with that said, that means pretty much anybody can kind of get into this, right? And as well, from there, you can start from a very basic level and get to, as they're saying, an industrial level, which means, professional level, to some degree. From my experience, Tinkercad is a really great place to start just because you can do everything in your browser, which means that you don't have to download or install anything. So for anyone who's sort of worried about disk space, files and stuff like that, obviously with people with experience with video editing and stuff like that, things take up a lot of space. As you can imagine, some shapes and some files can take up a lot of space. So the beauty of Tinkercad is that it's all on the web. That's a big bonus in my opinion, as well as it's free. So from there, now that you have your printable file, which is a STL or OBJ file, which is either a from what I remember, STL stands for Standard Triangle Language, right? Or Standard Tessellation Language. So for all you, nerds out there and stuff like that, has to do with all triangles and how they make into shapes and stuff like that. As well as an OBJ is just short for object file. From there, after you have your file, you have to go through a slicing process. Slicing basically means that you're slicing up a 3D model into hundreds or thousands of layers, and it's done with the software, right? So you're making it into little manageable chunks for the 3D printer to be able to use so that it's able to print it into the object that you want. So essentially, you're designing your whole object. So for example, right, this cup. So you're designing this entire cup as a 3D model, and then you're using another program that's literally taking it into little tiny pieces so that you can then take it from here into nothing back into this. So while your file is being sliced, or when your file is sliced, it's finally ready for your 3D printer, which means that you're now able to put it onto a USB drive. If you have Wi-Fi set up to it, you can send it over Wi-Fi, or you can put it on an SD card. And then from there, your 3D printer will then start printing it layer by layer. Moving on, we'll just lightly talk about the 3D printing industry. So pretty much 3D printing has reached the mainstream adoption to a critical point. So pretty much to the point where Mac, you've heard of 3D printing. You understand sort of like the basic concept of 3D printing. Poi, yourself, I'm sure have dabbled in 3D printing and heard of it and stuff like that. So pretty much everyone here has heard it. That's a small sample size and stuff like that. But it's not like no one in the room hasn't heard about it. So just getting into it, 3D printing was only suitable for prototyping and one-off manufacturing in really, really early stages, just because it was super unaffordable, and it was pretty much something that was needed on an industrial level. Most of the demand for 3D printing is done in an industrial format, which is obvious in its nature. But as it goes, 3D printing will be a major part in almost every industry in the future. Just relating to the topic at hand with airsoft, right? That's one small aspect of it and whatnot, right? And as it stands, 3D printing encompasses many forms of material, as 3D printing is used in many industries. For the purpose of this podcast, airsoft will be mostly talking about just the FDM printing aspect of it. But just going over some other industries here, we have aviation. So General Electric Aviation has 3D printed over 30,000 cobalt chrome fused nozzles for their LEAP aircraft engines. So for all you big nerds out there and stuff like that who are really, really interested in the fine details of stuff, that's actually a really, really cool thing. So that's something that's being used in actual rocket ships right now. One of the most fuel efficient rocket ships, I believe, or rocket engines. Excuse my sort of a description there, but yeah, so that's really, really cool. From there, in the construction industry, some of you might think, okay, construction, can you 3D print homes? The answer is actually yes, you can, and it's very real in the construction industry, all the way from whole homes being built, all the way to just prefab pieces so that homes can be formed together.
So how big is this 3D printer?
New job.
How big is this
So-
3D printer if
That's
it's
what
gonna
I'm
be for
wondering.
homes? What the heck?
So
Yeah,
not
Pretty
China's doing
big,
big
yeah.
things, man.
not
Big things.
even kidding around, Poi. Dave, if you just go to your Crealty one, just behind you there again, with your camera there. Yeah, so that one that you see right there in the background, Poi, imagine something set up similar fashion like that, like 2 giant posts and a gantry crane, and that printing your house. I have
Max,
seen designs like
Max,
that.
right? You're gonna have to find new jobs then.
In
Oh,
concrete,
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
in concrete.
Yeah, it's incredible actually. Some of the things that they've done and just the scalability of it as well.
Wow.
Another cool
This has
thing
been a
too
real
is
fear of mine for a while.
yeah, well, and another cool thing is also in consumer products like footwear and stuff like that. So Adidas recently has used 4D printing, as it's called. I know it sounds a little confusing, but 4D printing essentially means that a material is able to transform. So it like
Your shoes are in disguise.
so exactly. So in the in the
X, Y, Z. That's 3 dimensions. Where the heck's the fourth? What fourth?
It bends, boy. It bends.
It
Yeah, so
bends.
it-
What
it-
the?
it-
You're not thinking fourth dimensionally.
it bends. It bends. It's super lightweight, and it's like to accompany bend, it's flexible and stuff like that. So the added bonus is that it's made probably their footwear really really light, because I'm sure
Isn't that
some of
just
you guys.
material properties, not dimensions though?
Well,
I
the
don't.
Indians aren't there, Marty.
So think about it like this, Poi, right? You have a material, right?
Yeah.
Let's say as a solid structure, right? It's heavy. So imagine at a 3D printing
But then it would
level
exist
that
in
you're
3 dimensions.
that you're able to print it with air bubbles or like holes, but it's able to still keep its rigidity.
That's
Essentially,
not
then
a
you're
dimension
producing.
though. That's not a dimension. Though.
Yeah,
Fourth
But
that'll just
dimension,
be.
boy.
Hey,
Well, I don't do the
I
naming.
just hear
for it.
X-Files. Like,
I come from a 3D modeling background, so for me, I've worked in 3D space way too long to know what 3D is.
Hey man, to take it up with Adidas. Adidas.
I'll go up there.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. Go on.
Okay. Yeah. So I totally understand, man. So from there, also eyewear, right? So with eyewear, it's incredibly actually efficient with the fact that it's able to print out the frames and like we were talking about earlier with different kinds of material. So that doesn't include just you know FDM printers with their PLA and PTG and other plastic-like substances and stuff like that, right? You can use metal and whatnot. So that's super super cool. From there as well, jewelry, right? So you can make really really cool designs and stuff like that. Because like I was saying, with CNC machining, right? Essentially, you have to take something away, right? So with a lot of jewelry, it's mostly cast, right? So there's a limit, to how far you can mold something. So with 3D printing, the fact that you can print it as you go along layer by layer is something that's really, really cool, and probably you can make some really cool jewelry out of that. Another thing too, actually, to talk about consumer products, 3D printing has been a huge help actually with COVID-19. With the help of 3D printing, actually, a lot of face shields were able to be made to help assist a lot of frontline workers as well as a lot of the public and stuff like that. There has also been a lot of other cool things coming out with 3D printing to assist with COVID-19 and whatnot. So that's something to keep in mind about as well. From there, we also have the healthcare industry. So they get into just, lightly dental, bioprinting, and prosthetics. So with dental, right, teeth, dentures, and whatnot, bioprinting, what they mean by that is essentially like printing kidneys, printing livers, hearts, and stuff like that. Yeah. When you sort of wrap your mind around the idea that it's like it's like, hey, replace what this thing is like depositing as the material and switch it with something else, but it's still the same idea. It's like, cool, now you're building like bio
Well, that would be that.
bioprinting. That's really
Cyberpunk.
cool.
That last one
Yeah.
would be revolutionary. That'd be
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
cool.
why is it
I
not
hope-
being the big thing or being hailed as
Yeah.
the revolutionary thing? Why is it
that
still
would save
stuck
millions
at
of
the
lives.
prototype or whatever? Like,
I'm sure it's very expensive. It's also like
Ethical reasons. I have
and
no idea.
maybe ethical reasons and stuff like that, as well as the fact that I maybe people are just afraid of it and stuff like that. So.
I don't know. If you can give me a freaking indestructible heart, I think I'd take
I
that.
I think it's more of I guess we're jumping into like the fears and stuff, but remember when we were talking about construction, right? The fear of losing your job. I think that's the key
Well,
point that
there's-
you wanna see there is like you're basically you're machine processing someone's job at that point.
It's
Mhm,
fear of the
mhm.
unknown, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Revolutionary, regardless.
Definitely.
I getcha.
definitely.
Exactly. And then lastly here for the industries we have in education. So with educators and students have long been using 3D printers in classrooms. 3D printing enables students to materialize their ideas in the fastest and most affordable way. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right there, that's pretty straightforward, right, guys? And then universities also offer courses on these things that are sort of like sideways adjacent, adjacent to what is associated with 3D printing. So like CAD modeling, right?
Hmm.
So if you do CAD modeling, you're more than likely going to do 3D design, and which in that case, that's kind of going to aid your 3D printing sort of skills, right? So
Yeah.
Okay.
that's that's something to think about.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
definitely one of those things that would help increase your depth in the field, right? Because yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. You never want to be a one-trick pony, but like from what you're just describing me right here, like this has like huge implications for the future. And just listening, I'd like to continue listening. This looks like it's got really big waves for the future, and hopefully we get to see that in our lifetime.
You got my interest and attention. Now let's see.
Mhm.
Let's apply it to airsoft. Right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, do you really?
So moving on from the types of industries right now, we'll just lightly go over the types of 3D printers that there are. So one of the types that they have are the what do you call it? For short, people like to call it the VAT photo poly method, right? But I'm not gonna lie, I can't pronounce the whole thing, so that's how I'm gonna leave it at right there. For all you guys, you can look it up and try and attempt it yourself. But this 3D printer is based on the method of using a container filled with photopolymer resin, and the resin is hardened with a UV light source. So just kind of give you like a
Oh,
basic idea of that. I'm
it's
sure
like
some of you
the
guys might
dental
have seen this.
stuff.
So
Yeah.
it's a
Essentially.
resin
Yeah.
printer,
It's a resin printer. It's a resin.
It's a resin printer for the
So does
dumbed
it have
down.
to heat? Does it? Sorry if it sounds dumb. Does it have to heat the resin prior to printing it and then?
So,
I-
it has to be around room temperature, 25 degrees C. If not, it
Okay.
can be.
Yeah.
But you're
won't
hitting it
work
with
as
the
well.
UV to harden it.
Yeah, you're
Yes,
hitting UV,
that's what it
just-
is. Yeah. I know.
So
what
it's
you mean.
not in a liquid, but it's not in like a liquid state or something.
No,
like
it is.
that?
It's a liquid. It's a
So
liquid.
that's what it is. It's a vat. So it's
Yeah.
in a giant container, and it gets
Mhm.
hit with a UV light that transforms it.
Yeah. So basically,
After it's been printed.
Yep.
Well, no, that's the
no,
printing
that's
process.
a printing.
Okay.
Like I'm trying to. So this.
So it doesn't
printer,
work the same as the other printers
No.
where.
This
Okay.
is what I'm saying. These are different printers, right, Mac? So
Okay.
this one is completely a separate printer from the ones described before. This one essentially uses a giant. Okay. I guess for simplicity's sake, for something that you might understand from our old experiences, is like I'm pretty sure there was like a TV show or a movie, right? But imagine like a statue coming out of a liquid or whatever it is, and coming out in full form. Essentially something like that.
Okay.
Right?
Mm.
It starts out as a complete emptiness, and then it comes out, and then there's the shape of the thing that you're looking for, or whatever it is. That's like a really
Gotcha.
really dumbed down version.
It's actually
Okay.
one of the new printers that I've recently obtained, but I haven't been able to use yet. It's this one
Yeah.
right here. Oh, yeah, right there. Yeah. So yeah, that's like I guess like a newer thing. It's not as accessible compared to like the FDM.
Is
but
it
you get
like can you do as much with it, or is
You
it
can-
limited in its capabilities at the moment?
you can do. I'm gonna say it can do what the regular FDM can do and more in a higher quality because it's
Okay.
because of how it's done using the resin and it cures it. And actually, so basically, it pulls it out of a vat. It pulls it out of vat, and as the light, the UV light cures your shape, it will get higher and higher. It will get pulled up taller and taller out of the machine, basically. And you can get extremely fine qualities. Like layer lines on the regular FDM will be 0.25 millimeter, and you can get up to 0.02 on a resin printer millimeters.
So the smoothness factor is real.
So that's just you
Way
not
better.
noticing any of the lines or anything like
Yeah,
that.
it looks like a continuous model compared to something that has layer
So
lines.
it's got smooth lines to it rather than
Yeah.
jagged edge lines when you 3D print something. Okay.
When you
The
you
layer
can
lines,
notice it was printed. Yeah.
Yeah. There's obviously post-processing techniques that you can do to change things and stuff like that. But yeah, for the basics of it, resin is smooth and regular FDM is not. So from there, we have material jetting 3D printers. So in this process, material is applied in droplets through a small diameter nozzle, similar to the common inkjet printer, except for that it's applied layer by layer to build a platform, and then it's hardened by UV light. So a common thing that you see here is that UV light is used a lot here in the process.
To harden the materials. Okay.
From here, now we sort of get into familiar territory, which is the material exclusion 3D printers, which is essentially the FDM. So FDM printers work using a plastic filament, which is unwound from a spool and is supplied to an extrusion nozzle, which can turn the flow on and off. The nozzle is heated to melt the material and can move in both horizontal and vertical directions by a numerically controlled mechanism. The object is produced by extruding melted material to form layers as the material hardens immediately after extrusion from the nozzle. So, little
That's the
technical
common
there.
one then.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's the one that most people are going to be familiar with.
Yeah,
and
I've
as
seen
well as
I've
the
seen
whole
that one
idea.
before, so that's common
That's
then.
what we're all seeing.
Yeah.
Next we have powder bed fusion. So powder bed fusion, just to give like a direct example, we have selective laser sintering, which is SLS, which is something that why I'm sort of specifically pointing out is this also has an avenue when it comes to airsoft. Because of the because it's a metal sort of process. So SLS uses a high-power laser to feed small particles of powder into a mass that has a desired three-dimensional shape. The laser selectively fuses powder by first scanning the cross-sections or layers excuse me, on the surface of a powder bed. After each cross-section is scanned, the powder bed is lowered by one layer thickness, and then a new layer of material is applied on top, and the process is repeated until the object is complete. So, in relation to airsoft, that's sort of the process that's used to make airsoft gears that you might purchase online, or metal parts that you might
I was about to say it's
purchase online.
because it's powder bed, it has to be metal at that point. Okay, that's
So you can print metal parts.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
That's
You
I
just
know
have
I
to
know
have the material and the tip,
yeah
right?
I know in machine processing
Yeah.
when they start putting the like the powder bed and stuff like that, that means that they're working with metal. So I'm guessing this is more of the traditional way of making metal with 3D printing at this point. But that's awesome to know that you could actually 3D print like metal. So
it's very expensive at this point, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that was my next question for that is like the cost to benefit analysis between like CNCing something and then.
So yeah, for like big companies, it's definitely worth it because they probably get a bunch of orders for stuff because you can make literally anything with it. But it does cost for the whole, like you can get a whole kit. I think it's Form Labs or whatever, and they have basically it has the lasering part where it makes it, and then the curing where you have to put it in a kiln, and it fuses all the laser parts together to make the full piece. And that costs about $150,000
for the full setup.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
Ooh, that's no joke.
Yeah.
It'll probably get cheaper with time, as like we saw with regular 3D printers, where it used to be like 10 grand. Now
Well,
it's down
so
to like a couple hundred.
exactly, you hope that this is like another thing that gets really, really popular, and it sort of brings costs down and stuff like that. Because FDM printers have gone down in cost phenomenally over the last 5-6 years.
Well, that'll
Obviously, it's
depend
been
on the
around for a
market, right?
while, but yeah, the fact that it's become really, really mainstream and popular, the fact that you can do it in,
The comfort of your own home. Yeah.
in your room and stuff like that has really made it, super, super
Like,
convenient.
does that cause any problems for you, Dave? Just having that right there in your your little office computer room, like when
So
you have it working right now, right?
yeah, it's actually just finished your piece, so I'll go grab that in a second.
Oh, sweet.
But so it's a little bit noisy. You can definitely get some things like there's some software you can basically upgrade onto it to make it sound, I guess, not as loud. There's no fumes. Well, there are, but they're like microparticles. They don't have a really study on the effects, so I'll tell you in 20 years if I have mesothelioma. But at the time right now, it's perfectly fine, probably. But the resin printers, on the other hand, you cannot use inside. It smells way too bad.
Okay. All right. All right. All
Cool.
right.
And
is
hold
that
on.
the other one that you have beside you, or no?
Yeah. That's the one you see right here,
that's a resin
right
printer.
there. That's a resin printer, and that's my FDM one right
So that FDM, how long did it take you to make that piece right there?
here. An hour and 15 minutes. It's a. Should I? I'll
That
show
is
it.
that is a huge turnaround time for manufacturing. Oh my gosh.
A base for a GBB Glock.
Yeah, Glock.
Not real. Not real. It's fake.
Yeah, that's fine.
Airsoft.
Airsoft.
Disclaimer.
Glock.
Airsoft.
So
I'm not making weapons.
yeah, no, that and how much was that material overall? Just like that cost.
Let me pull up my slicer. That took me 13 grams. I can buy a kilogram roll for about $20. So it's a couple cents.
Wow.
Okay, so pretty big win for you there.
For material cost, but then time cost.
And you could just throw those things around and be like, "Oh, it broke. I'll just make a new one."
What's your because you have to. It's the tip that matters as well, right? Your filament is what it.
Well, no, your nozzle. Because your nozzle wears down. With
eventually, over time, I actually upgraded to stainless steel nozzles, which greatly.
So you get a greater life out of that. Okay.
You get up way longer. Brass, it wears away quite.
So what you're telling me is we have another hobby on top of a hobby dealing with this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hobby on a hobby.
Does anybody do RC? Does anybody do RC?
Jill, come back here for RC.
Yeah, boy, the piggybacking effect on this is actually incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, no, this is.
I do RC sometimes. So
this is part of automation. I
want to get back into it.
This is I think I had a debate with someone about this is going off tangent a bit, but I was having a debate about automation and how it'll help us, and they're talking about universal income stuff. Anyway, so I don't want to talk about I was talking about automation and how it helps us as humans process more things that are more challenging in front of us, and we just keep pushing forward until our minds can hold capacity to the next thing. Yeah. So if you think about it, like your cell phone, right? It acts as a calculator now, so you don't have to do math, right? As much math, we can do much heavier math now than we did before. Things like I used to have back in the old days, you had a like a contact book with all your contacts. Now it's here, right? The capacity to remember stuff like phone numbers and stuff, right? You let them deal with it. You deal with something else, right? You just keep pushing forward to innovate, humanity or
keeping up with the Kardashians.
Yeah, let's not downgrade ourselves.
We went from hunting and gathering to
so this is just humanity's process of moving forward, right? This is why we're the apex predator, right, at the top, right, of the food chain, right? So anyways, that was my topic there. Like I was talking about, I'm like, wow, yeah, we've gone through, we pushed through so much with technology. This is just the next step to it, right? And as well as hobbies that we take in because we're just bored as heck. So, yeah. Anyways, go on. Sorry.
Okay. So, anyways, guys, just before we get on to the next section here, I'd just like to remind you guys that if you like what we're doing here and you want to keep up to date with our weekly podcast here on YouTube and other socials, why don't you just tap that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so that you can keep up with our.
I see what you're doing there. I see what you're doing there.
And whatnot. As well as you guys
you got to work on that, but you got
to do giveaway. You got to do giveaway now.
No.
When as well as by pressing that notification bell, it'll let you guys know for some of those random as well as totally scheduled live streams that we have.
Yeah, you need to be there for those.
Anyways, guys, with that, back to our regular podcast here. So next, we're going to be talking about the legal aspects, or at least the licensing aspects. So, Boy, if you could just hover over the licensing portion there. We're going to be talking about just a little thing that I found to kind of give people an idea, because this was a question that was brought up to me a little bit.
Are we talking about the Creative Commons stuff?
Yes.
Okay, let me pull that one up.
Just
Here
because it gets so when you get into the legal aspect of things, it can get really, really spicy. But you just have to understand sort of like the basic understanding of stuff. So, just going over here, guys. This was taken, this sort of keeps in mind most things on Thingiverse, as well as other website design that allow you to sort of make things. There are some open source programs, I believe, out there that don't attach sort of like a licensing something, which can add complications down the future and stuff like that. But I believe most programs and applications automatically go through this process with you. With that said, it talks about the two logos that are identified there. The file that is licensed under the Creative Commons attribution license. This means that you can print and modify the file, but you need to cite the original creator. So that's an important factor. By providing their Thingiverse username and link to their original file when you display or use the object and or photo or video of it. So, if you're doing sort of like a showcase on YouTube or something like that, you got to make sure essentially that you credit the original designer of the object.
Okay.
So that's just that basic logo right there. That
the
goes
CC
into like
and then the person, right? Is that what you're talking
yeah,
about?
the CC and the person. So that goes into like just the basic of it. If we scroll down here and we go into the other logos that sort of pop up into the relation of this, you will see again the CC and then the person, which says I can share, remix, make money as long as you mention the author. The next one, where it's the attribution and share alike. So unfortunately, from there, hard to sort of zoom in, but if I remember correctly, this one is just a CC, a person, and sort of like a return circle with an arrow on it. And so what that means is sort of like the share symbol, I believe. You can share, remix, make money. You have to mention the author, and you have to keep the same license as the author. So
You can't change it. Yeah.
Exactly, you can't change it. Now, the next one goes into the attribution with no derives, which is the CC, person, as well as a logo with 2 dashes in it, which says that you can share, make money, but you have to mention the author, but you cannot remix that specific file or
Okay.
object.
So that just means no making changes or anything like that?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you can take that thing. So pretty much it's they put it up for licensing and then or mention and for reproduction. So if someone makes something and then they don't have the capability of making it and they put it up as a file for other people to use, as long as they credited it for it, that's one thing. Next one. This is one that you're going to see actually very common when you sort of get into the 3D printing realm, just because a lot of people want to avoid a lot of legality stuff, is the Attribution Non-Commercial, which is CC followed by the person, as well as a circle with a $ with a slash through it, which means that you're able to share, remix this, as long as you mention the author, but you cannot make any money off of this. This is something that you actually end up seeing a lot online for files that people take from websites like Thingiverse, Tinkercad, and others like Shapeways and whatnot,
Okay.
and sort of just make it for themselves, right? Or like because you can't like how do you say this? It's like you can't take it, remix it, and then put it on the same website to sell it for yourself, right? That you're essentially breaking that. And so there's a trail that they're going to find, and you're going to get spanked for that, pretty much, right? Obviously, there are going to be people who slide around the rules and whatnot, or whatever it is, but this framework is put there so that people actually have a foothold to stand on, to be able to, fight back against people who, don't follow the rules. From there, next one we get into is the attribution non-commercial share alike. So similar to the one we talked about above, this one is the CC person /$ as well as the share symbol, which allows you to share and remix it. You have to mention the author. You have to keep the same licenses, and you can't make any money off of the file. And then finally here we get into the attribution non-commercial non-derives, which is essentially the same one as we talked about earlier, but all you can do is you can share it. You can't sell it. You have to mention the author. You can't remix it, and you have to keep the same license. So that basically goes over the main sort of licensing that you're going to see when it comes to 3D printing sort of files and whatnot. So from there, 3D printing has existed for decades, with certain manufacturing industries where many legal regimes, including patents, industrial design rights, copyrights, and trademarks may apply. However, there is not much jurisprudence when it comes to how these laws will apply if 3D printers become mainstream and individual or hobbyist communities begin manufacturing items for personal use, for nonprofit distribution, or for sale. So essentially, because of how fast 3D printing is becoming mainstream, just like with anything, regulations are really, really slow and falling behind on this. So that's one of the things that I was saying earlier that you were probably going to run into, that you need to keep in mind when you get into stuff like this, is that yes, some of the stuff is more budget friendly now, but you also have to keep in mind sort of the intent of what you're trying to do when you get into this kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, definitely. Cause sorry, definitely. You're not boring me. I swear. I'm actually interested in all this. Because like you said, you're crossing over a lot of different kind of different groups or different kind of like factions or something like that, right? When it comes to like manufacturing and industry. Okay, so you're wide scoping across a vast industry with this.
Yes.
So I could definitely see the pros, but I could definitely see the cons on this too. Yeah. So I see why they have to have these necessary protections to protect themselves. So yeah.
And so with that, patents cover inventions including processes, machines, manufacturing, and compositions of matter, and have a finite duration which varies between countries, but generally 20 years from the date of application. Therefore, if a type of wheel is patented, printing, using, or selling such a wheel could be an infringement of the patent, right? So that means that exactly as said, right? So think that's something to think about right there, right? When we get into the next part here, which is copyright, copyright covers an expression which is tangible, fixed medium, and often lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years thereafter. So if someone makes a statue, they may have a copyright mark on the appearance of the statue. So if someone sees that statue, they cannot then distribute designs to print an identical or similar statue. Okay, so basic sort of copyright sort of right there.
Okay. And
Okay.
your environment.
Okay, yeah. So moving on from there, we're going to get into sort of the environmental kind of stuff about this. So the wide acceptance of 3D printing could have a large impact on the environment, as opposed to traditional manufacturing, for instance, as we were talking about earlier, in which pieces are cut from larger blocks of material. 3D printing creates products layer by layer and only prints the relevant parts required for the final design, wasting way less material and thus wasting less energy in the production, as well as in the producing of the raw materials required for the finished product. So for all the people who who are really, really interested in the environment out there and stuff like that, this is another avenue that you can get into. Definitely something that can be looked into a little more and stuff like that.
It's a conscious way of thinking. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, as well as by making only the bare structural necessities of the product. Additive manufacturing also could make a profound contribution to lightweighting. So reducing the energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions of vehicles and other forms of transportation, right? So when it gets into why you have to design something in a certain way because of the industrial processes that are required to make that material, 3D printing gives you sort of that ability to sort of do it layer by layer. So that's really, really, really cool. Another cool thing about the environmental aspect of this as well is that with the continuing adoption of 3D printing, there's going to be a lot of it's first a negative, right? Because there's going to be a lot of waste sort of involved, right? As Dave probably understands, right?
Yeah.
Your first print is not going to be it's not going to be the one you keep. I'm telling you that right now.
It's
I
your
have
first
so many.
print.
I
Yeah.
have a box full of prototypes and stuff.
So the one argument a lot of people are going to be like is, oh, there's going to be a lot of waste. Of course, there's going to be a lot of waste. But the cool factor is that you can break down a lot of those mistakes back into the original material that it was printed out of, because all it is that it was melted, right? From melted into layers and stuff like that. So you can break it down and essentially recycle this stuff. Obviously, just like with anything with recycling, it's not 100%, but hey, there's more sort of waste reducing processes involved in this as well, right? The fact that you're already reducing waste by 3D printing something instead of cutting something out from another material, you're then also recycling the failed attempts and stuff like that using recycled filament and stuff like that. Obviously, there's implications behind that, and there's probably going to be some people out there who are going to get really, really mad and say, well, you can't really print with recycled filament. Well, you know what? Let's just cross our fingers and hope that technology gets a little better.
Well, what about the one negative thing that you have here? Tag?
Mm-hmm.
What about the negative? You have one negative head point here. It's a environmental downside.
That's exactly what I was just talking about.
No,
The
we were talking about you were talking about the upside, and I'm talking about how they're talking about creates a form of waste that is non-recyclable.
Yeah, and I think tech wouldn't. I think we kind of switched the narrative on like that question. Which is I can clarify if you want me to.
Yeah.
So what Tech was saying, because there is with the plastic, you're basically there's a
reducing
downside with
waste. Yeah.
You're creating waste as well if you're with all like you have to make supports for your builds and stuff if you need it, and a lot of that kind of just throw it away. But there is downsides if you do things like that. You don't recycle it properly, but there's actually machines you can buy that allow you to take the scrap like that, or even scrap like prints that didn't work very well, and turn them back into original filament strands, kind of what you see on the roll right there. Right there, you can basically make an entirely new roll and then reprint with that, which you get almost 100% back, unless you lose stuff to like microparticles and stuff. So there is a downside only if it's not treated properly.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing too, what Mac is sort of specifically getting into as well, is sort of like with the sintering processes. So yeah, when you get into like the sintering process and stuff like that, from what I understand, the powder around the metal can't be recycled, but the rest of the bed, from what I understand, can be reused or whatever it is. I don't know the specifics on how they go through that whole process and how they sift through it or whatever it is. But yeah, unfortunately, there is some.
There is a downside.
When it comes to the metal printing aspect of it. So we hope the technology gets better from that.
Yeah. They find better ways.
Finally, Airsoft and 3D printing, guys.
Ooh.
So now, Airsoft in relation with 3D printing, or 3D printing in relation to Airsoft. However you want to take that line or dose. How is it useful? Well, obviously, I'm gonna ask you guys here, sort of, after we've gone through sort of the little description here. What do you guys think the useful aspects of 3D printing are when it comes to Airsoft?
I would say, that very first part is just doing it at home is probably the biggest thing that we could take, I could take away here is if
Okay,
I
so
was a
all right.
tech, if I was a tech and
Mhm.
I needed something, well, I'd like a ergonomic grip at the front or something, provided that it's your
Mhm.
design, right?
Mhm.
Again, going through your Creative Commons here when it comes to the licensing portion of it, or if you create your own design of it. I mean, the problem is most ergonomic design, like let's say grips or something like that, are always like
Patented.
copyrighted or something like that, like something like a
Mhm.
Magpul or something, right? You'd be
Oh,
like,
they're
well,
done. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, the takeaway is you could just make it at home at that point.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
the again, provided you have the equipment, the filament to do it, and
Material.
material for it,
Electricity.
and electricity.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
about the important one.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, no, this is my thing is like thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, no, I could. As someone who's worked in 3D sort of software before, I can make my own things and print
Mhm.
it out afterwards. Yeah, no, this is awesome actually. To say the least. I understand it's revolutionary. You know, when we were talking about it, it's revolutionary because it's just taking away manufacturing process and doing it at home.
Mhm.
And I want to get into the other side of that later when we start talking about the downside of this is that the manufacturing process is then going to be with the user, not with someone else anymore. So
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, So yeah, go ahead, Mac.
What?
Your turn.
Oh,
Yeah.
Say something.
Deer in headlights. What? What?
I have been listening. No, well, I definitely see like you guys are talking about like the benefits behind this and everything like that. And then for me, what I would definitely see and what I'm trying to dabble with again with Dave here. Thank you for cooperation. And then again with the help attack is airsoft accessories. Obviously, I see like there's a pretty wide angle for what we could kind of fulfill because exactly like Dave's talking about earlier in the podcast, it's there's a real headache when you have to order something in from out of country or just across Canada even, and all of a sudden it's a $2 part, but it is now 100, like exactly for us whenever we're doing stuff internationally. I know a lot of us have felt this, and it's really shitty pressure too, because all of a sudden you need a $2 part to get your gun working again, but it's going to cost $80 in shipping, and it's like, what the hell is this? Like, $80 for that?
Can't
What? And
justify the price.
exactly. So
Yeah,
then
exactly.
those are one of those times where I know we've all done it together. We've all banded together and made group orders and stuff like that when we need something just to try and mitigate that shipping cost a little bit. But if this is one of those things that we can maybe work our way around, of course, licensing and distribution and all the legality stuff, mindfulness on that tax. Sorry if I am uninformed on that, but like, yeah, whatever you can do from that and then bring it into our hobby or anything like that, I feel like that would be great.
Yeah, right to the consumer, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then for Dave, what about you? Obviously, you're heavy into this, but
Oh, it's
what do you
tinkering for
see?
you. Come on.
I do quite enjoy just like messing around with things, but like
Mhm.
having the ability in my house, as you can see, I've finished another one of these bases. I could literally say, "Oh, I need this part for game day Sunday," and if I get it from
Mhm.
like insert airsoft warehouse place here in like some other country, it'll probably take a week with like
Mhm.
$30 FedEx shipping.
Hmm.
When I can literally do it in my house. That makes no sense. And maybe that might be able to actually push some of these companies, like some of the bigger companies. I don't know about the smaller companies, but the bigger companies to like find better ways to get it to a consumer cheaper, rather than having to pay exuberant prices for stupid little parts.
Yeah, $2 gear set or something like that.
Maybe
Yeah,
find a way for them to sell licensing or figure out a way
exactly.
to have their parts available so that you don't have to
Hmm.
sit there and measure it yourself. You can kind of have like an
Caliper
original to
time.
go off of and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's where I see is um as well as like creating like the cool nifty parts. I see 3D printing more beneficial for a lot of the guys who have a lot of closet guns, a lot of the guns that broken down, a lot of the guns
Yeah.
that aren't or discontinued, right? A lot of stuff that's maybe you have a cracked stock, maybe you have a broken pistol grip, or maybe
M2
the
4D feed tray. cracked off.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? So all those old niche stuff that the company's gone now, and
Mhm.
you have no way of getting it to work, but you really, really love that platform.
Deep
This
Fire,
opens.
send me your RPG platform.
Yeah.
Deep Fire,
Thi-
if you ever see this.
Well, exactly. So this really opens up that avenue, I think, to the old airsoft parts or broken down parts kind of thing and stuff like that. And then next, sort of in relation to airsoft, is prototyping, right?
Yeah.
I know we were talking about it before and stuff like that, but airsoft is ever evolving, and with that, 3D printing allows for so many of those ideas that are part of the ever evolving ecosystem to sort of become a physical reality in a very real, manageable time frame. Um,
Yeah.
and just as an example, Dave, could you sort of just show a couple examples, I guess, of some of the
So
stuff, because I am sure you
Oh,
have
he's
tons.
Yeah.
he's ready. He's been ready.
Oh yeah, so like I actually have two stories talking about like a closet gun that you've had that broke
Mhm.
down and you were crapped out on you, and you're like, oh, this isn't a piece of garbage. I can't get parts for it, and I'll show you. Trust me, I got some things to show you. Number one, so my G&G Raider I was talking about earlier. It's a combat machine, and I had it. It was good for like the first year playing, and then I got into nicer guns. But it fulfilled its life, and I wanted to get rid of it, but nobody was looking to buy it for like a price that I was willing to take for it. So like
Mhm.
instead of doing that, there was actually I can't resell this, but I did print out somebody else's model, and I didn't modify it, but I only chose to use some of his parts,
Mhm.
and I actually made here a combat machine shorty pistol with a
Okay.
potato masher on the front of it, and
I know,
That's really
boy.
cool.
I know.
yeah. So
Boy,
this
you look amazed.
The fuck?
So this has been 3D printed in the front here, and the original barrel's been chopped. And
Okay.
this has actually been
Alright.
printed on with my FDM in PETG, so it
Okay.
has the strength and rigidity more than PLA, and
Okay.
it doesn't degrade as well. So
Okay.
just it was like basically a kit you could find online.
Okay.
That was pretty cool, and I didn't really have to do very much. I didn't actually didn't have to do any CAD modifications at that point.
Mhm.
It was all just like handwork, gluing, and stuff.
Okay.
Now
All
my
right.
next topic. This is where the fun begins. I have an abomination of a gun right here.
Oh.
This is my
What?
OTS 14 Garoza that I customly made and designed using a thing called Tinkercad, as we talked about earlier.
Wow.
That's
And
impressive.
this is this used to be a ENL Gen 1 AKS 74U that I owned. I bought it for the collection, and the gearbox blew up. Absolutely done. And then I tried taking it apart, and oh man, I screwed it up pretty bad. Yeah, I got the front gas tube block off, and it was not coming back on ever again. So
A lot of things went wrong here.
it
Okay.
was sitting,
Oh, yeah.
it was sitting in my basement for a good year and a half, 2 years maybe. And recently, I saw some videos of people turning old like SEMA guns into a just like for cheap to resell. I'm not going to mention his name. Just some soldier guy. Anyways, I asked him if could I have the files? Could I have a printer in my home? Can I make what you've had, or can I use this? And he's like, no, buy it from me. So I'm like, okay.
Cute.
So then from scratch, I 3D modeled I guess like the front receiver or handguard here, the
Mhm.
trigger system and linkage, or trigger system and linkage. This trigger is plastic. The little plastic piece here that goes up into the front gas tube, which
Mhm.
holds this. The handguard, which locks in with a pin through the dust cover. And I threaded the original barrel that I screwed up and put a 3D printed thread screw on it. And I made this homemade little thing here that actually has interrupting thread locks that can sit on and lock into place.
Wow.
Right?
Oh.
Like,
Hello. Okay. All right. All right.
That's impressive.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you literally brought a graveyard gun back to life.
You
Yeah, it
basically
was.
built a Groza. Yeah.
I built a Groza out of HP. It's a more modern take, and not a
It's
disgusting.
all right. I
Soviet
think
piece
there's
of
only one
work.
other guy to compare to, and then there's a real steel one. So I think everyone can kind of
And
shut up.
I've seen like other people have been attempting
Mhm.
to build something like this, and I'm gonna be telling honest, not to float my own boat here, but mine looks probably the best.
Well, and I'm not gonna lie, as a person who got to play around with that thing, it works. Like
Slaps.
not like just looking at that thing and thinking like, oh yeah, that's a really cool toy kind of thing. Like, no, the reloads, like
I'm gonna show you this as an empty banana mag
bullpup
here. I'm gonna put
AK
that in.
reloads, guys. Bullpup AK reloads, amazing.
Dole, not sponsored.
That's impressive. That
it's
is.
so good.
Oh, whatever. I'll leave it in.
Good. Yeah, he's been making this project for a little while now, and yeah, Dave is a little engineer out of the.
And then, final thing will be out of airsoft guns. We'll go to the equipment side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
I'm not gonna mention that godforsaken CRYE company. But just in case, just in case you want to get some sponsors. But I also have like the chops for the airframe style helmets that I 3 modeled and
the mandibles, yeah.
mandibles.
Mandibles,
Mandibles,
yeah.
Okay.
I also did this for my Masca one. It's a helmet, and it had. Oh God, you're gonna hate me for this one. It had the original Adidas faceplate on it. I couldn't see shit. So I'm like, how can I remedy this and make it historically accurate? And I know that like in Chechnya when the Russians were invading, they made like a fishbowl version using some glass. And I kind of I took by hand, I measured with I have some schematic, I probably pull it out later, that I measured with calipers and by hand the size, and I put into Tinkercad again and modeled this with the curve. There's some Velcro holding on. I could actually rip this off right now.
Oh, that's
that's
really
not
neat.
full seal. You're not allowed that on my field.
I wear glasses as well, so there we go. See where you wear glasses underneath this, but you can run on this with the shorty.
Well, it's double protection because it's Lexan shield.
Lexan shield, which is effective distance. We had to bend into shape using heat and stuff.
Which is impressive. Like that
was really
the
good, dude. The fact that you've managed to do that off.
So
he's doing it for cheap too. That's impressive.
I've been using open source online. I got really good at Tinkercad, but I tried like one of the other Adobe ones or whatever it was. Wasn't a fan. I liked using the old stuff, and I managed to make some pretty cool stuff.
So this is making good headway for, I'm guessing, people doing cosplay stuff. Then necessarily you don't have to get you don't have to buy Gucci gear. Understandable, because you're just doing it for the looks. But wouldn't that apply to airsoft as well? I mean, if you're just doing it for looks.
I don't remember.
I think people have printed ODST helmets. I've seen those.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are a couple guys actually. Sky Ronin does helmets similar to that and stuff like that.
I want one.
Well, so right there, right? So, with how useful 3D printing is in relation to airsoft is designing new parts like that, right? Obviously, the Groza is not anything new, but for I'm pretty sure anyone out there isn't an airsoft Groza yet, as far as I'm concerned.
Bruh, I don't even know how many real steel Grozas there are.
Oh, Dave,
we lost your audio.
Hello. There we go.
There you go.
Sorry,
okay, there we go.
Hephasis or hepatitis, whatever it's called.
Hepatitis, yeah.
What?
No.
Hephasis.
No.
Hephaestus?
Whatever its name is, whatever. Anyways, they made a Groza. They made a Groza. It was like a one-off. It was GBB. Ugh, just kidding. I like GBB, but $1,000 for that, and I made this for.
Damn. Okay. All right. That's a lot.
And now they're.
I'd rather get it
Here. I'm gonna give you $150 SEMA and throw you some money. Okay.
Hey, might be
I have some broken guns. You wanna?
So okay, right there,
So my big issue is now looking at all these parts that you're making. They're all plastic, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So even the hardest plastic will break. So how, like you were saying, how expensive was it for the metal manufacturing portion of it?
Oh shit! There you go. Sorry, $150,000 for the machine right now. If you want to get the machine,
$150,000.
So to me, that still sounds like it's at an industrial level.
It is. It sounds like
and if you want to do it a cheaper way, you could. There's definitely ways you can do resin and turn it into castings.
Yeah.
Which is one way. It's a lot cheaper, but it's still more expensive. Resin fitters are
like casting, as in like you melt steel and then cast it. Yeah.
Or you aluminum and you cast.
So you're doing prototyping and then casting afterwards.
You can, that's something you can do.
Okay, so you can still go back to the old ways of doing things with manufacturing if you have that sort of manufacturing. If you have that setup, which is heating up something and then casting it.
If you have like an apartment building, ain't gonna happen.
No.
Your landlord's
You're-
not gonna be happy.
First of all,
Doors in the
electricity.
apartment.
Second of
Sir,
all,
that
fire
plate is
hazard.
very hot.
Good God. So it.
Anyways,
So that is a drawback right now, currently. But
Yeah.
you were saying that it will take a little bit of time when everybody starts to get into it.
Yes, and that's what because you brought up like how strong and durable plastic is. I'm gonna bring my wonderful Groza again. Yes, so I have actually fallen with this a couple times. This is my second prototype basically. I kind of changed up some things. I can show you them. Actually, I might go get them in a second. I'll turn my camera off and run up. But I fell and I snapped this. It was one day.
Okay.
I think it was like 2-story cabin. It was in the forest. I snapped it. I broke it. It still fired, which I was very surprised. It looked like a California compliant. There was no pistol grip. It was gone. And then
Is there
I'm like,
even such thing as a California
I
compliant?
still have it. I'm pretty sure. I still have it. I'm pretty sure the pistol grip mount just sheared right off. So I'm like, okay, I'll just print another one. And 2 hours, 3 hours later, boom, we're good to go. We're back in business. A little bit of hot glue, and I got the trigger working. This is the one that's lasted me for 5-6 months now, since last summer about.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's impressive.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is 2.0.
So you're able to rectify a problem pretty easily with like projects that you have on hand.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
And-
all the stuff that you have here is all designed by you. You have the sole
except
ownership
for
of it.
this.
Except for that.
This, I do. My helmet, yes, and some other things that I'm working on. I have in my Tinker.
But the front nosing on your machine pistol.
The front nosing and the back, that is not mine, so I can't sell it, but I can print it.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
it was designed by another.
And the licensing says you could share it, right?
Yeah, you can share it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
What was I trying to? I was trying to lead to that to something I forgot. Oh, the ethics of printing gun parts now. I know that was a big issue in the gun world, right? We're talking about airsoft here, understandable, but again, since they always mix
There's
us
a
up,
real fear.
they always mix us up with the gun folks anyway, right? There is that movement about printing gun parts and stuff. And stuff like that. What's your opinions on that? I mean, I don't know how to do it myself, so I wouldn't know. But
I'd love to get into that because I'd like to separate us as airsofters from those people. I'm not gonna name some of the YouTube channels that have them that make like the 9mm 3D printed pistol.
Because that was recent. I understand what you're talking about.
I can link it afterwards. But there's even a YouTube channel that has basically 9mm pistols with 3D printed suppressors. I do not endorse that. That's no.
That's going against our laws, understandably.
That's a big no. Even like even like the US, where like, oh, you can make your own weapon. It ethically, I can see how that can turn out pretty bad.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. Gets into the wrong hands, and I see like gangsters even get, because like right now they have guns that are getting in illegally.
It's still easier to buy it smuggled over.
Yeah, it's easier to smuggle it over, and if they can make it in home, oh man, now we got a whole another issue. We got a whole another issue.
So
I do not endorse any of that at all.
So I guess the big fear is that 3D printing, just like a lot of other things, getting to sort of like the mainstream point where almost any Joe Buddy or whatever can just go and get something done without any kind of education or second thought behind it, sort of.
Yeah, and I know there's like a bunch of like things happening with that, especially like door hooks, coat hangers, where the hell they're called. But yeah, like that I definitely think there should, I don't want to say regulation on 3D printers because like that's stupid, but there definitely should be regulation on the sources of where those are coming from, because that's something that I don't like. And like all the stuff that I make here in house, good luck. You put that in a real gun, you're gonna have a face full of shrapnel and a burnt hand.
Yeah,
or you're
understandable.
dead.
Like I was saying, plastic is plastic. Eventually, it will break, especially under the stresses you put in a real firearm, right?
Yeah.
Well, so I think they're like, not to play devil's advocate too much, right? Because I really like 3D printing, but I can see where a lot of people on the other side would argue, right? Because you have guns like polymer guns similar to the G36 and whatnot,
Mhm.
where it's
Certain
essentially
parts are polymer.
well, it's not certain parts. The major entirety of it is polymer. The functioning firing portion of it is
The
metal.
action
So when
is
you
metal.
Fuck did I just
so
say? I
so
said
so when
certain fucking parts, man.
yeah,
What are
but
you
yeah,
playing
but you
word
have
games with me here? The
well,
fucking barrel's metal, yeah. The
well, no,
firing pin's metal,
so hey,
yeah. The
Let
trigger
let him
box
finish.
probably
Let him
so
metal.
finish.
so without you getting all amped up about it, right? Is that what is happening in the 3D gun printing community is essentially that. So you
Mhm.
can sit there and be like, well, that's essentially blah 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 blah. Whatever it is that
No, they can
90%
get
of the
it now, yeah.
my 90% of the thing is being printed, and then whatever's needed,
For
right?
the
Because we all
action,
understand,
yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
because we
Like
all
you were
get it,
talking
right?
about
Like,
with like
because you,
Sears, right? Like all they
yeah,
have to do is
Auto
get a trigger
Sears.
box, right? And then get all you have to do is swap out your to a full auto
well,
sear and
yeah, so and like we were saying earlier about regulations being a little slow and stuff, there's obviously a lot of room and ground that needs to be covered and stuff like that, right? But
Mhm.
obviously there's going to be a lot of mistakes and things that are going to happen along the way just because of the ground that needs to be covered, right?
Yeah.
And a
Well,
lot
it's
of
new
people
territory.
yeah,
Well,
and so obviously, right, like the way people are getting around it and stuff is they're not making resin barrels, right?
Mhm.
Like like we like
Used like
in
metal barrels. Yeah.
yeah, so they're using like metal barrels and stuff like that. So the aspect that the criminals are probably using and abusing is the fact that there's no like serialization happening, right? They're
Mhm.
making something from scratch without a tracking or tracing process
And
involved in
and
that.
that's
and
similar to that post that we just shared earlier. Is they're printing their own bodies,
yeah.
Hmm.
right?
With no chance of tracing it
Yeah.
unless they get caught, right?
And well,
Yeah.
the same thing. I'm not gonna tell anybody how to do this, and I don't endorse this at all. But you can go to a hardware store, get 2 pipes and a nail, and you got a 12 gauge shotgun. So if you want
Hmm.
to say I need to serialize all piping
Well,
and fitting,
it's basically along the lines of if you see everything as a potential dangerous weapon, which basically everything in
Everything
everything
handgun
is.
is. You can
is,
open a spoon and a
Hmm.
right?
knife. Fucking.
Right. Well, I'm just saying it's all like if you're going to go to the point where you're banning and regulating certain materials over that kind of thing, you really need to
See,
evaluate or
Welcome
reevaluate
to
here
every time you do
1984.
here is my
that.
take. Here
Thank
is
you,
my
George.
here is my take on it. So we come from like me, Tech, and Mac. We come from the '90s where we were used to downloading things, in
Hmm.
Napster and all those things, right? So
Yeah.
these are basically proprietary rights of the studios and as well as whoever created it, right? But
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was
exactly.
easy because we could just go online, download it, put it on our MP3 player, the little tiny ones, or iPods or iPods or whatever, right?
Yep.
And
MP3
we
iPods.
MP3s
yeah.
and iPods. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we play, right? And then the industry was shocked. That's what's happening, right? Slow to
Oh,
react, right?
unbelievable.
Right? And that's what I'm seeing with the 3D printing world. Manufacturers are shocked. They're like, "Oh no, like people can print at home." Well, but that's okay because they're not far away. Like they're still far away from making like metals and all this fun jazz, right? But
Hmm.
Mhm.
you guys, especially you, Dave, you're finding ways to sort of get around it, circumvent it. Like
Yeah.
yeah, almost, right? But
Almost.
it's in a legal way, right? But the music industry back then was slow to catch. You had like Metallica suing, Napster and all this jazz, right?
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
Yep.
that.
And yeah, you get to a point where, zip up 20 years from now, what is it? We got Spotify playing
Hmm.
music, and people are actually
Licensing
willing,
music to
yeah,
And
people.
paying
Yeah.
the
licensing,
artists.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
we're paying, yeah, for the ease of use, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Exactly.
if the manufacturers, if all of these guys figure out a way to send out their, like let's say
Their
like
file.
I was talking about Magpul, right? If they can
Yeah.
send out their file to someone, and then the 3D printer goes, okay, I'll print it for you. You
And
pay
then
the
add a
license,
serial
right?
number.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
add a serial number or whatever, right? Because that is the digital footprint that it needs to do it. And then, put in the legislation, after Metallica, all this and that, the legislations came in for protecting artists and as well as studio rights, proprietary rights for their music, right? So,
Distribution.
yeah, and then
everything.
distribution after, yeah. So they just need to figure out ways to go, and it doesn't take one night, right?
Hmm.
3D printing has been around for a while, but
Well,
it's still at its infancy. I can tell you that.
Oh,
yeah.
100%.
Well,
100%.
Yeah.
so one thing that I see that can happen, and obviously this might sound like sidetracking for a lot of you guys, right? But when it comes to serialization and stuff like that, and consensus over something being created, I see like blockchain technology being immensely useful in situations like this, especially when it comes to like 3D printing stuff online on the internet. I know a lot of people probably have no idea what I mean by that, but when I talk about creating something and then having consensus about it being created and then that being understood, agreed upon, and then being written down is essentially like one of the most guaranteed ways that you get around like tracking something and whatnot.
Yeah. So, what for sure for summary for people, blockchain is basically once you put out, let's say, an OBJ file out there, has your name, whatever. You're basically putting it up a ledger. Once that ledger gets sent out to like 12 people, they get a copy of it and be like, okay, this is from this person, and then it hops,
and you can
until
track it all the way to the
everybody
original.
until everybody has it, and then when someone says, hey, where's this guy from? All right, and then it hops back all the way to you.
Yeah.
Right.
So let me interrupt for a second. I'm gonna go grab that box of stuff. Let me mute my video. You guys keep talking and stuff.
Yeah. So exactly. So that's one thing that I really see. Not to get sidetracked on that, but
But again, this is
licensing stuff.
Again, blockchain is also new, right? We don't want to. We don't want to just hop into something and be like, yeah, let's introduce this to this, right? They need something proven, right? So the best way to sort of like do this, because music going to the digital era, right, was like simulate what music did to what it is now with Spotify, Apple iTunes, all of these guys, right? Like they basically started molding into this sort of online music community, right? That you could just distribute out, or even see, you could go to your studio and then the studio will distribute out to these guys, right? And then you get royalty out of it or whatever, right? We're still a long ways away from that, honestly, because again, with 3D printing, it's super new.
Well, and it also, what it comes down to is someone being like, oh, I don't want to pay for this. I can design something similar to that from photos, and someone trying to copy you and stuff like that. It happens all the time.
No, and understandable, because piracy is still big today. It hasn't gone away. Unfortunately, it won't go away. The only thing you can do is just make it so that it's easy to attain for other people, right? What Dave was saying was the dude was like, no, you can't have this. You're going to have to buy it off me. Okay, done. And then he figured out a way around it, right? So,
well, I think that also comes down to is piracy sort of exists when there's no fair value for something. So when someone feels like they're not being, when they feel like they're being scammed, they're going to find a way around it. You know what I mean? Not advocating for piracy here, guys. I'm just saying that as someone who understands those kinds of feelings, right? Just saying.
Yeah. What'd you grab there, Dave?
Exist.
Just grabbing some of the prototypes that actually I made.
Oh yeah,
a box of goodies.
The design factor. All right, let's see some of these.
So while you're doing that, Dave, have you made any money from 3D printing?
I haven't actually charged. I charged maybe a couple people people at my school if they want to, but not really anybody airsoft, because it's just small things. And I kind of like giving back to the community, not really be like,
gotcha.
Hey, you want me to do something? I'm like, yeah, sure.
But if you were thinking about it, what sort of model would you follow in terms of selling something? Would you create something of your own, or would you take a file that people send you and then you make it, as long as it's a share file, and then they just pay for the filament? Or how does that work?
For your time, or
I think I'm doing that right now with somebody else, actually, one of the train wreck guys. But if they want something printed, like they want something from scratch, I can design it and I'll do that, and I can charge if they want like the pay. If it's something that's like really labor intensive, I will charge them for it. Probably be not that, it wouldn't be that much. Like I want to be competitive with a lot of like the big companies. That'll be like charging an arm and a leg for like a miniature part, something like exactly this small. It's like, come on. And if it's something like, if they send me a file that I'm legally allowed to, I guess, redistribute, if I print it, I can sell to them. By all means, I'll just charge you for the filament and the time. That's about it.
Okay, so 3D printing is all about like the materials and the time that you put in.
Yeah, and electricity, but that's not as much a factor here in this in Vancouver compared to like other countries. But
yeah.
Let me show you. Actually,
yeah, go ahead.
I have my 4 previous models. I don't know what I'm to my broken one, but here are my first 2.
Those are your prototypings, I'm guessing.
Oh man, they were hot garbage. So from here, and then I got nice more bigger holes.
It's like a couple of dollars of materials on that thing, eh?
Yeah. Actually, not that
Okay.
much.
And time, and time.
It's mostly the time that
Yeah.
definitely that you see with the prototyping.
Yeah. So then I went to this is my first one was PLA. So I had PLA here, and then I.
Well, so what is PLA? Is it a less stronger material or?
It is, and it's also biodegradable. It's made of like cornstarch, which is pretty cool.
So kind of like our BBs.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Built almost, I think, the same way as that, and it will degrade after a while. PTG is a more robust plastic, and unlike PLA, where PLA gets brittle and snaps, so I could snap this thing and it just falls like it fall apart. This is more like it has more rigidity and it bends rather than snaps.
Okay. All right.
I wish I had some things I could show you, but I seem to have already broken them all.
He's recycled them.
I've recycled them.
Oh yeah, backyard heating with the pan, trying to get that plastic. Wow.
Trying to get it back.
Okay,
it bends rather than snaps. It just keeps bending. I can just keep bending it. Oh, that one snapped, but see, like the majority bend here.
He just pulled a Tesla here.
Okay. Okay.
No,
so
he just pulled that Napoleon Dynamite uncle. He's all right. You can drive over it with a car.
Just for our viewers listening out there and watching as well, that right there, was that the PLA material or was that the PTG? Okay, so that right there shows like it's very ductile. Like
the PLA
PLA is just gonna break right on you.
Wow.
Wow. Okay, there you go. Just like that. Okay.
So I guess my next big question is, what does this mean for big businesses when it comes to 3D printing?
Jobs.
Well, are there
gonna be worried
that do 3D printing on the side, guys? Like that's a big thing actually, right? Like
there is actually. I'll show you.
Off the top of my head, I can only think of one or two that really incorporate.
Here, I sent you guys a link, but back I would say 5 years ago, I was contacted by SRU GBB.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and they made.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I seen this.
They made. They gave me. I'll send you guys a link here, but I'll show you guys. I made a nice little video about my Scar L, but it's a what do you call it? A bullpup version of it. So it was pretty unique back then in terms of like what I was using it for, and it fit perfectly because I guess I was telling them my Scar L the what is it, the handle broke off, so I'm like, well, I'm not using it, and they're like, oh, we can fix that, and then they
made it into that.
Well, they gave me the kit for it, and I'm like, oh, that exists. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and because
they also make that nice SRU GBB. They made that a SR Arm 01 to armor and the helmet. Yeah, so you could also make like body armor adaptations to it as well, but not like real body armor, like cosplay stuff, right?
Yeah, like
and then that helmet
for legal reasons, fake body armor.
Yeah, fake body armor. And then they also make Glock adapter kits, right?
Okay.
Carbine
kits as well. They now started adapting all kinds of different weird things like AK-74 AEG version, Mark 23 like conversion kits, so you could put a stock at the back.
Yep.
All kinds of different things, right? And it's they've been around for a while, and they've been I guess they've been at the forefront of 3D printing for a while as well, because the video that I released here basically was almost 5 years ago.
Oh well, not a long time ago, but still a long time ago.
And I know they made that bullpup AK, which is like a very
they had that bullpup AK as well. That was the next thing. But yeah, their first prototype that they came out was the SRU SRBUP P1, which is the SCAR conversion kit to a bullpup. That's what I had and tested it out, fielded it, and damn, it was beautiful.
That's right, and then they also recently this last year came out with the Glock kit that I saw that was really, really popular.
Yep.
They also have Mark 23 cab. I'm sure. I think you might have mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen that
Yeah.
as well.
So that is like a model for them is all about 3D printing, and they've been at the forefront at it. And I guess the industry has just been slow to sort of take it on. I haven't seen anything in terms of like 3D printing for, let's say, G&G or something like that, right? Or even like metal 3D printing, for instance, right? That would be cool to make, like get some unique sort of rails for like guns, right?
I was gonna say hand guards or some kind of
skeletonized lowers and uppers, right? Like that'll be cool to see.
Companies that make like the drum mag adapters as well.
Yeah.
For HPA for pistol and stuff.
Oh, Angel Custom ones.
Tap Airsoft.
Actually,
Oh,
exactly.
man, yep.
So a lot of the HPA fanatics, this last 2-3 years have been really lucky because 3D printing, material-wise, has gotten a lot better, and with that has come the benefits of being able to use it with HPA. So I myself own a Tap magazine. That's actually one of their new prototypes, which was completely 3D printed, other than just the feed lips on top, and then meshed together with a Angel Customs drum mag. So that's a really cool thing. You know, I'm scared of breaking it because it's 3D printed, but I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty skookum, but still,
pretty sweet.
You know. And then I've seen MP7 mags with the HPA adapters. I know Primary Airsoft makes 3D printed adapters and stuff like that. I know in previous episodes I've mentioned Hadron Airsoft. That guy does everything 3D printed for upgrades when it comes to Mark 23, as well as some Glock parts as well. So yeah, when you actually kind of start to focus and look at it, there are a lot of businesses out there that kind of do this, and it's just sort of flown under the radar without people sort of realizing.
Yeah, and it looks like they manufactured it from a factory, right? There's no difference between manufacturing from home or in a factory at that point.
Yeah.
It's just that the benefit of 3D printing at home is your costs will drive again if you have the equipment for it, right? So.
Yeah, I know a lot of these companies because I've seen the price of what it costs for me if I was to try and make one of these, and then like, oh my god, that is nuts. What they're able to charge for a little piece. Oh, not a piece, well, like.
So, are you saying that? Are they overcharging for something that shouldn't be overcharged too much, or is it just a standard business model that they have, where they charge it at a full price?
It's a business model because it's supply and demand. But I'm going to tell you, they probably are able to make mass loads of these things at a time from personal experience. That you can probably put a bunch on a bed and make them. And they are making them out of expensive filament, which can add up the price. That makes sense. The carbon fiber, I believe, which is pretty good stuff. But I have seen some pretty, especially I have the MP9 adapter for my drum mag, and I noticed there's some things that are pretty iffy that actually broke on mine, that I remedied myself because they were just not. I don't know if it was purposely built like that, like one like a 1 millimeter thick layer compared to they have like spaces where screws go into, and it doesn't have very much material to hold on to, so it basically snapped right off, just under its own weight.
Do they do that to sort of save costs, or do they do that just because the end user doesn't know much?
It could have been the user doesn't know much, and if they break it, they blame it on the user for being broken, or it could be cost cutting, using less material equals more money. And that's the thing about the big businesses, or people can make them at their house, and they're not being held to, again, exuberant prices for small things. Because I could definitely try and actually something I wanted to do. If I haven't been working on the other project. I actually want to kind of design my own kind of HPMA, something that'd be using a cheaper material that I can make. And
that'd be really cool.
Maybe sell, but not for the price of the Tap mags, because some of them are really expensive.
So even as 3D printed by manufacturer, it's still expensive. Are they?
Very.
And you know how much they cost.
I can get a fairly good estimate, especially printing for the last couple of years, knowing that it would never cost $60 to make a piece like this. Maybe designing will cost like 15, 20.
So when you're getting into this, the habit of buying stuff 3D printed, is it good to know what you're buying, or is it
Yeah,
something that
'cause
is
I've
like
seen
it's such a
'cause-
wild west right now? I think.
yeah, because I've seen like people. There's like I guess like things adapters you can get for your Glock again, carbine kits. If you take one small trip and it breaks, if you don't have a 3D printer, it's kind of tough luck. As I told you, I found that same problem with plastic. It will break if you fall. It'll break. And mine. Well, I was able to print a new one, and that's the problem for me because I have a printer. But for like the average person that's not going to spend $300 on a printer or something like that, or $400 or more, it's just be very vigilant with what you buy, because number one, you can probably get something just for a little bit more that's like made of metal and will last you a lot longer. Or it's just something that's 3D printing. It's just you got to be very very careful what you buy, because some things might break, some things might not, depending how they're used and where they're used.
So it sounds like there's a definite convenience cost involved, as well as from the sounds of it, hearing some of the prices of taps, magazines, and stuff like that. There's probably some sort of research time or design time sort of factoring in onto some of their prices possibly. But obviously, one thing that I don't see in a lot of business nowadays is where they have that initial price, and as time goes on, that price sort of drops down to.
So you're buying the early adopters price then at that point, and you're paying more for their R&D.
Exactly, and and as a person, sort of, who's I don't mind that aspect a lot, right? Because it does help sort of, it's like early Kickstarters and all that kind of stuff and whatnot. But that is one of the problems, is that you see these kind of manufacturing processes, but you don't see that like price point sort of lessening. It's like Dave's saying, right? There's because it's so unknown, there's room for abuse, sort of, in that sense.
Exactly, because it's something it's a topic that I guess does take a couple years or months or years to fully understand, and how they work and prices and stuff. But I just want to go back to another thing. Like, again, if I was to settle and just buy that Soldier Guy's
Groza
for 600, no, actually no, it was $1,000. Yeah, it was $1,000.
So same price as the Hephaestus one. Okay,
$1,000 US, made out of a SEMA, which is HPA. And if I broke it, if I didn't have a 3D printer, oh man, I'd be SOL. I'd be so SOL. It was nuts. Because you broke it. There's no warranty.
But
you can buy a new one for $240.
But put a disclaimer on it, because you have a 3D printer. You know what you're doing. If someone else was to do the same thing you're doing, but they don't have the applications and as well as the hardware that you have, what would you then say? Would you just go for the $1,000 and go for the repair afterwards?
I would definitely say. I would get into the actual 3D printing, and learning how to do it yourself is not as tedious as I think. It's definitely way worth it in the long term. There's so many things that you can do. You can make.
Like I said, it's a hobby and a hobby. So if you want to learn another hobby, come talk to Dave, because I mean the benefits for you outweigh what the costs are for that dude's guns.
Majorly.
But for other people who don't know anything, then you're starting off from scratch, right? That is the huge disclaimer I want to put down here is, if you don't have the hardware or the skill or the knowledge to begin with, right?
Or the time, because that's a big factor.
Tread lightly on this stuff, because Dave's explaining that for him it's easy, understandable. He knows everything. It would be easy for you, Tack. You would know what to get. You would know who to ask for, right? But as for someone who doesn't know anything, right? Tread carefully, right? Because these do, as a hobby itself, we know how hobbies get. They get expensive.
Very expensive. And
exactly.
So you make like a purchase, just out of a heat in the moment. Oh, this thing looks really cool. I want to buy it, and you don't know exactly what you're getting to. That could cost you some money. You could be putting through most gear, other stuff, ammo.
I think we all understand. Getting into a hobby, and you don't know what you're doing. You tend to buy things that are right off the shelf, right? And sometimes it's just wrong.
Exactly. And when you think about it too, right here, we actually have a pretty good spread on when it comes to like the 3D printing purchasing aspect of it, right? Because as Dave's saying, right, he has his own 3D printer, so his option always is going to be looking at it as the aspect of how can I print this at home and save the cost, right? And as myself here as an example, right? I'm a 3D printer enthusiast. I really enjoy the whole aspect of it, but I myself don't own my own 3D printer. So I have to look at avenues of purchasing someone or paying someone to make the part for me. So I would have to go on places like Shapeways, right? Or I'd have to go to people like Dave or another person on my team as well and see if they have the time, because I'm going to be paying for their time, right? Because sometimes the file that you're getting, right, can't pay for that file. You're not paying for that file, but I have no problem paying for their time because it is time consuming, right? So in that aspect of it, right, am I a person who doesn't have the time like Dave would to 3D print stuff and whatnot, pay that convenience fee? Those are some of the options that I have to sort of, contemplate as well, right? As well as also deciding if I want to purchase off a website, which then comes with the shipping cost that's involved with that. So that's another thing that you want to think about too, which is what Dave also points out, is if you're already going to be paying the shipping costs, why don't you also think about long term on maybe just making stuff yourself and whatnot, right? And you can branch out onto a whole bunch of other things, not just airsoft related, as we talked about with the other industries involved. So with that, I just like to sort of reach out and say to our viewers there, if you guys have any questions related to this topic.
Did you learn something today? I mean, that's the big. I learned a lot of things today, honestly.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. There's we brush this obviously like we do with a lot of our topics with a broad brush, just because it's there's a lot of specific things that we can get into.
Very hefty topic.
We haven't even gotten into the gear portion, like making gear, like what SRU does.
Exactly, and that's something that we can go down to on a future episode, actually. And I would really like to, specifically because there's some video games out there that I'd like to talk about, and in relation to 3D
Halo.
printing.
Yep.
Halo, Tarkov, a bunch of other games too, like
Gears of
Wolfenstein. Yeah. So, anyways, guys, I would just like to, I would just like to thank everyone, for listening and sticking out through to the end of this and everything like that. Yes, Mac, Warhammer.
For the Emperor!
Oh.
I would just like to remind everyone to, again, remember about COVID safety protocols and to keep in mind your social distancing and everything like that. Let's, keep pushing through. We'll make it through to the end. I would like to thank Dave for spending his time here with us, as well as sharing a lot of his experiences.
I enjoy talking about this. I'll tell you that.
You do.
Definitely, I would love to have you back.
We'll have you back. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And with that said, does anyone else have any closing remarks?
Nope. I'm just gonna say goodbye.
Okay, well, with that, guys, that's the end of our podcast, episode 39, 3D printing with the Panther Panther Airsoft folding table talk. Almost got that.
All right. Goodbye, guys.
See you later, guys.